So these days, budget smartphones are coming faster than Jason Biggs in that their American Pie film. It literally seems like mere minutes since I reviewed Xiaomi's excellent Poco X3 NFC smartphone, and now along pops another contender for the budget smartphone crown, the Realme 7 Pro. Now while most cheapy mobiles, including the standard Realme 7, use a basic IPS display, here on the Realme 7 Pro you've got a gorgeous bright poppy super in-your-face OLED panel instead. So media fans in particular should find themselves getting rather moist. But is the Realme 7 Pro a one-trick pony, or is it well deserving of that special spot in your handbag / pants? Well, I've been using it as my full-time phone, and here is my Realme 7 Pro review. And for more on the latest greatest tech, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Now, as much as I enjoyed the Poco X3 NFC, it was a bit of a beast at near 6.7 inches. And while the Realme 7 Pro isn't exactly diminutive at 6.4 inches, it's definitely a bit easier to fondle with one hand, especially as the nifty one-handed mode can be easily called into action. The back end isn't quite as exciting as that OLED screen though. Like most budget blowers, it is a simple polycarbonate arse, or polycarbonet if you will. But as usual, Realme has at least done its best to jazz up the aesthetics a bit. So you've got a snazzy split design in a choice of silver or blue finishes, while that matte surfacing is reasonably resistant to smudgy, greasy finger filth. And that textured surfacing is lovely and soft to touch as well. It's definitely got what we term in the industry as a good hand feel. And the disadvantage of a plastic backing is that it usually scratches up like a morpho, but touch wood, the Realme 7 Pro is still in perfect nick after a full week of being slapped about. And you even do get a condom case stuffed in the box just in case you're a proper butterfingers. And no worries about the front end as far as durability goes either. It's definitely a lot more Jason Statham than Jason Donovan. You've got Gorilla Glass plating, and then slapped on top of that you've got an actual screen protector as well, so great stuff. Now if you're not familiar with Realme smartphones, the OS of choice here is full-fat Android with the Realme UI slapped right on top. This is basically just the ColorOS launcher by a different name. So if you dive on into the settings, you've got the same hot mess of a menu there with lots of really neat features buried away in there. And when I say buried, I basically mean good f***ing luck finding any of them. But when you do track them down, the likes of the aforementioned one-handed modes and the screen recording and the super nighttime standby features and all the rest are great little additions to Android. I've covered some of my favourite bits in my previous ColorOS tips and tricks guides, so definitely go check those out for all you need to know. And you also have a swift and accurate face unlock feature here, which can be set to only work when your eyes are open, and that proves good backup to the thankfully reliable in-display fingerprint sensor, which seems to work well even when the screen protector gets rather grubby. You've got full NFC support and a good bit of Google Pay action on there for your contactless payments, and you've also got full access to the Google Play Store, so you can download as many fresh apps as you like. And the Realme 7 Pro also boasts dual SIM support, plus an entirely separate slot on top of that for micro SD memory cards up to 256 gigs in size to expand the already pretty generous 128 gigs of onboard storage. But of course the one defining feature that really sets the Realme 7 Pro apart from the best budget phones right now, like the Poco X3 NFC and of course last year's Realme 6 series smartphones as well, is that gorgeous OLED display. At this wallet friendly sort of cost, it's IPS all the way usually, so having that Super AMOLED on there offers up a very different visual experience. Like most wallet-friendly handsets around this price point, you get a full HD screen, so videos and photos and everything look pleasingly crisp. But because this is OLED tech, you can really play around with the colour output as well, favouring more realistic looking visuals or really boosting the colour warmth for a vivid, vibrant experience. Contrast is impressively sharp too, thanks to those very deep natural looking blacks. Definitely one of the biggest benefits of an AMOLED panel. The selfie orifice doesn't intrude too much on the action when you go full screen, as it is rather nice and dinky, but you can block it out from view if you're not a fan. And if you want a bright display, well, this thing could blind a bloody rhino when it's boosted to those maximum levels. However, it's not all glory and slaps on the back when it comes to the display tech, unfortunately, because there is a trade-off for having that OLED technology on here, and that's the fact that the Realme 7 Pro does not support 90Hz refresh rates, unlike the standard Realme 7. What you got here is 60Hz, and that's it. It's almost like being horrifically hungover and then getting a nice, delicious fry-up slapped down in front of you with eggs and bacon and beans and black pudding and all that good stuff. But then you discover to your absolute horror that there's no sausage. And don't get me wrong, it's still a really good breakfast, but all you can think about is that missing sausage. And yeah, I know I'm just getting greedy because yeah, it's a question of cost, isn't it? Having a high refresh on an OLED panel really does bump up that price. But seriously, where's my sausage, Realme? Where's my sausage? The Realme 7 Pro is pretty tasty when it comes to the audio front as well. That stereo speaker setup can pump out loud, clear audio on top volume to be easily heard over even the shoutiest of family interactions. And when you want a bit more privacy or just want to enjoy some tunes, you've got a headphone jack or Bluetooth to choose between, with Dolby Atmos and high-res audio support slapped on top. And this budget blow packs quite a wallop when it comes to the performance stakes as well. You got Qualcomm's Snapdragon 720G chipset crammed in there, along with 8 gigs of RAM in my review model, although you can get it with just 6 gigs in the base version. And this benchmarked just as highly as any rivals out there, including the Poco X3 NFC, and in real life it basically means that apps load quick, while the overall experience is as tasty as a sausage sandwich with extra sauce. Gamers will definitely be happy with the smooth frame rates that they'll find on titles like PubG Mobile and Call of Duty, even when those graphics settings are boosted right up. These fast-paced games stick around the 60 frames per second mark, so you can react instantly to any weak gob who fancies themselves as a bit of a Rambo type. And the Realme 7 Pro doesn't heat up when you've been playing for a while, so no worries if you'd rather pass the afternoon by capping fools instead of doing work or spending quality time with your family. And speaking of gaming all afternoon long, that's not a problem either thanks to the 4500 mAh battery stuffed inside of the Realme 7 Pro. And yeah, that's not quite as high capacity as some rivals like again the Poco X3 NFC, the Moto G8 Power Lite, but in real life I found that was not a problem whatsoever. It's a minimal difference anyway, and I still found that I could, for instance, on the most intensive day, get 2.5 hours of sat-nav use out of this thing, all while streaming media over the car stereo, get plenty of camera use, plenty of other screen on time for message checking, web browsing, all that kind of good stuff, and at the end of the day I'd still have like 25 to 30% battery life remaining, which is really stunning stuff. Otherwise, with more regular use, you can just about stretch to 2 full days on a single charge. And no worries when the Realme 7 Pro is fully drained, because it's got support for 65 watt super dart charge as well, which is an even match for Oppo's new Billy Big Bollocks Reno 4 Pro. You'll happily get a full charge in just over half a frickin' hour, and you actually get that super dart charger bundled in the box as well, whereas a lot of manufacturers who charge a lot more for their smartphones tend to leave that stuff as a optional accessory. And the final area where the Realme 7 Pro impresses is its camera tech, which here in Blighty is a big step up compared with the standard Realme 7. The primary shooter here on the Realme 7 Pro is a 64 megapixel Sony IMX682 sensor, and it shoots at 16 megapixel by default, not the full 64 megapixel, but you know what, that's absolutely fine for your everyday shots. My test photos packed plenty of detail still, even when shown on a big screen. The colours are boosted somewhat for a more vibrant finish compared with what you'd see in real life, but that's not necessarily a bad thing as long as you're not after absolutely natural looking photos. And also definitely stay clear of the chroma booster mode, which makes colours look even more mental. A 64 megapixel mode is also available as well if you want finer detail, but you'll have to hold the phone really still, as your shot will be a blurry mess if you don't. HDR situations are handled competently too. You get a nicely balanced snap even when your subject is pouncing about in bright daylight, while moving subjects are also dealt with commendably thanks to the fast focus and shutter speed. Indoor snaps don't look overly soft, while the Realme 7 Pro also copes well in low light. And that night mode works a treat when things get proper dark, making a full-on impact. You've also got an 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle lens, although this offers completely different results to the primary lens, not just because of the wider viewpoint. Those colours are also a lot warmer, so this lens is best used only when necessary. And then so Realme can say that it's got a quad lens camera setup. You've also got a 2 megapixel mono lens and a 2 megapixel macro lens, and they're both pretty much pointless. I mean, why use a 2 megapixel macro lens when you can just use a 64 megapixel lens and then crop in? I don't know. For your home movies and vlogging purposes, the Realme 7 Pro can also shoot decent looking Full HD video at either 30 or 60 frames per second, but I preferred bumping up to 4K resolution at 30 FPS, which gives you sharper looking footage. Audio is cleanly captured with little interference from the wind or other noisy annoyances, although the volume can be a little bit soft if your subject isn't stood right by the phone. And if you love your face and you want to share it with the whole world, the Realme 7 Pro will serve you well. That 32 megapixel selfie cam can capture you normally or with full portrait smarts, and the wide angle view means that you can cram in loads of background detail too, or even a bunch of mates when we're actually allowed to mingle with other human beings again. And that right there is my full review of the Realme 7 Pro. It's a budget smartphone that I really enjoyed using, especially for streaming a good bit of media over Disney+, Netflix, whatever else, and that is of course the main feature that sets it apart from the rest of the competition, that gorgeous OLED screen. ColorOS, even in the latest version 7.2, is quite messy, but at least it is packed with lots of great features, a bit of one-handed help and all that other good good stuff that we know and love. The camera tech, the battery life, everything was absolutely solid. The only thing I missed on this thing was, of course, a 90Hz refresh rate. Is it a good trade-off though for those really punchy visuals, the nice sharp contrast? I'd say just about. So go check out my full unboxing of the Realme 7 smartphone as well if you want to know more about that. I've also done a full comparison with the Realme 7 and the Realme 7 Pro, so you can see what the differences are, which one might be best for you. And of course, I've rounded up all of the best budget smartphones you can get right now in 2020. So go check out all of those great, awesome videos here on TechSperts. Of course, I would say they're great and awesome because I'm the bugger who shot and uploaded them, but hey ho, make your own minds up. So please do like, subscribe, ding that notifications bell. Feel free to tell me I look like frickin' Mer off of Practical Jokers in the comments as well. I haven't heard that one before. And have yourselves a lovely rest of the week. Cheers everyone. Love you.